4-year-old Joan Gay Croft survived a mile-wide tornado, but she didn't survive what came next. 2 men walked into a hospital basement, called her by name, and she vanished forever. Something else took Joan Gay Croft. A 4-year-old girl survived one of the deadliest tornadoes in Oklahoma history, but she didn't survive what came after. Tonight we're going back to April 9th, 1947, the night a mile-wide tornado tore through Woodward, and the night a child vanished from a hospital basement without a trace. This is the disappearance of Joan Gay Croft. On April 9th, 1947, the Woodward Hospital, one of the few structures still standing after the tornado hit. Survivors crowded into its basement, injured, frightened, and searching for loved ones. Among them were 2 sisters, 4-year-old Joan Gay and her older sister Jerry. They had just been pulled from the wreckage of their home. Their mother, Cleta May Croft, had been killed in the storm. Their biological father, Edwin Ernest Rails, wasn't in Woodward that night. He and Cleta had divorced years earlier, and the girls had been living under the last name of their stepfather, Hutchinson Allen Croft. Allen survived the tornado, but he was critically injured and taken to another hospital. The girls were completely alone. In the dim basement light, Joan clutched a doll someone handed her. Her dress was torn. Her hair was tangled with dust. A large splinter of wood had pierced her leg during the storm, and nurses had wrapped it in makeshift bandages. Family members later said she kept asking for her mother. She didn't know Cleta was gone. The basement was chaotic, glass crunching under nurses' shoes, people crying out names, dust drifting through the air like snow. And then 2 men walked in. They asked for Joan by name. Not the little girl, not the child with the doll. They asked for Joan. They said they were taking her to another hospital. They didn't take her sister. They didn't show identification. They weren't wearing uniforms. They carried no medical equipment. They simply walked out with her. Jerry, injured and unable to follow, watched her sister leave. She remembered Joan looking back at her, confused, unsure, before disappearing up the stairs. It was the last time anyone in the family ever saw her. To understand how Joan vanished, we have to understand the storm that tore her world apart. The tornado formed in the Texas Panhandle and intensified rapidly. By the time it reached Woodward, it was nearly a mile wide, roaring like a freight train tearing through the night. Witnesses described the sky turning a bruised green. Lightning flickered inside the funnel like a lantern trapped in a bottle. Animals grew restless, radios crackled with static, and then the wind began to scream. When the tornado hit, it didn't just damage the town. It erased parts of it. Homes were lifted from their foundations. Cars were tossed like toys. Entire neighborhoods were reduced to splinters in seconds. In the aftermath, the streets were unrecognizable. Fires burned where gas lines ruptured. Families wandered through the wreckage, calling out names, hoping someone would answer. And in the middle of this devastation were 2 little girls who had just lost their mother. Inside the hospital, the storm's violence still echoed. Windows had shatters. Dust drifted through the air like snow. The basement, normally a storage area, had become a refuge for the dozens of injured survivors. Joan sat on a cot, her legs dangling, her shoulders rounded, her hands tucked close to her chest. When someone placed a doll in her arms, she clung to it like it was the only familiar thing left in the world. They stayed close to Jerry, leaning into her for comfort as the wind moaned through the damaged building above them. Nurses moved quickly. People whispered prayers. Others cried openly. The air smelled of wet earth and antiseptic. And in that raw, disorienting atmosphere, the 2 men appeared. They asked for Joan, took her by the hand, and they walked her out of the basement. No one stopped them. When the nurses realized Joan was missing, panic erupted. They searched every hallway, every room, every corner of the basement. But outside, Woodward looked like a war zone. Homes were splintered, cars overturned, power lines down, roads blocked, communication destroyed. And the tornado struck during a nationwide telephone operation strike. Phone lines were already crippled. Calls couldn't be routed. Hospitals couldn't confirm transfers. Families couldn't reach each other. If the phones had been working, Woodward might have received a warning about the tornado. Instead, the storm arrived without a whisper, and Joan's trail went cold almost instantly. Many children were separated from their families. Some were transported to makeshift shelters without proper documentation. Volunteers moved freely through the hospital, some in uniform, others in plain clothes. In that environment, it wasn't unusual for strangers to carry injured people to different locations. The chaos created the perfect conditions for Joan's disappearance, go unnoticed until it was too late. Investigators faced enormous challenges, conflicting witness descriptions, no documentation of a transfer, no confirmed sightings, disaster zone with thousands displaced. The case grew colder with each passing decade. As debris cleared, workers found the bodies of several unidentified children, with records destroyed and families scattered. Some were buried without names. Joan's aunt personally examined 2 of the unidentified children. Neither was Joan. Some people believe she died in the storm, but the Croft family never accepted that. Those children were found in the wreckage. Joan walked out of the hospital alive. That difference matters. With so few confirmed facts, only theories remain. Mistaken identity, abduction by someone connected to the family, secret adoption under a false name, human trafficking, rare but not impossible in the 1940s, or death during the chaos. Each theory explains something, but none explained everything. The men asked for Joan by name. They ignored her sister. They left no trail, and no one ever came forward. The truth remains elusive. For the Croft and Rails families, the loss was devastating. Cleta was gone, Joan was gone, and Jerry, who witnessed the moment her sister was taken, carried the memory for the rest of her life. Their stepfather, Olin, searched for answers. Their biological father, Edwin Rawls, lived into the 1970s, long after the tornado, but never saw his daughter again. The family was fractured, not by choice but by disaster. Despite renewed interest over the years, the disappearance of Joan Gay Croft remains unsolved. No confirmed sightings, no verified identity matches, no remains, no definitive explanation. The case endures because it sits at the intersection of disaster, confusion, and human vulnerability. Some mysteries fade with time. Joan's never did. She survived the storm that destroyed her home, the storm that took her mother, the storm that left her and her sister alone in the basement, full of strangers. But the tornado wasn't what took her. Something else did. As the days that followed were swallowed by broken phone lines, a nationwide operator strike, and a town cut off from the outside world, the silence around Joan's disappearance only deepened. Decades later, the question still hangs over Woodward, like a shadow that refuses to lift. If the storm didn't take Joan Gay Croft, then what did?